All right, guys, welcome back to the Digital Learning Channel. This is Kyle Chandler. Sorry, we were experiencing some technical difficulties there at the very onset here, but we're joined now by a team to present to us. And I'm going to turn it over here to we've got Laura and Brandy with us, and I believe we're going to see Laura's screen with her. Be sure to hop in the chat, tell us what school you're with, who you are, and again, thanks for joining us live today. So, with that, now I'll turn it over to Laura and let her take off.
I'm Laura Donnelly. I'm the school counselor at Kenwood Elementary, and I have to say that's on JCPS. I'm biased for sure. And Brandy Kaylin is our AIC, and I'm so fortunate that she's here with me to help.
I feel like you can't see anything. Hey, hang on just a second, Laura. They're telling us they don't have video on YouTube. I'm so sorry. Hold on just a moment.
I was going to say, I'm not seeing anything either. I keep checking back and forth. But I don't see where there's a
When you say refresh the entire... Okay. Yeah, Laura, I'm sorry. I'm doing the same thing with you, girl.
Practicing what I preach.
See, I'm going back and forth to see if it's live.
So go back to the live stream and open that window and make sure that
Okay, I'm back on light stream. I see loading in orange. Yeah, I think
we're set up.
You think you see us now?
Ready to go?
Laura and Brandy?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So my name's Laura Donnelly. I'm the counselor at Kenwood Elementary. I always say best school on JCPS. And I'm fortunate enough to be joined by Brandy Kaylin, who is our...
Sorry, we hear you, we don't see your screen, so I guess we're not fully...
Okay.
So they hear her, but they don't see her screen.
right, they hear you, but they don't see you. So in a live stream, you see that same tab, right?
Yeah, light stream, in that light stream window, I do see her presentation, yes. But there's a orange loading button, and then an end stream button, but I do not see an update stream button.
So that orange loading button will say update the stream.
And if I hover over it, it gives me a hand like it wants me to click it and says push your changes live.
Yeah, go ahead and push it.
Updating, update successful. Your broadcast has been updated.
And then go to YouTube and refresh that.
YouTube. It looks like it's coming up now. But I don't see the picture, so I'm going to refresh the whole YouTube screen, correct? Okay.
Once they click it says push your changes live.
Well,
There you go.
maybe.
Updating.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Update successful. Your broadcast has been updated.
All right, Laura, let's try that one more time. So sorry, guys, for the technical difficulties. Laura and Brandy are joining us to talk about learning at home and how to do that. Go right ahead, ladies. Go right ahead. I believe we're live now, ladies.
Okay. All right. So my name is Laura Donnelly. I'm the counselor at Kenwood Elementary, and I always say best school on JCPS. And I'm fortunate enough to be joined by Brandy Kaylin, our AIC, to help with the chat and links and whatnot. So before I get started, I'm just going to throw in this plug. If you have not already taken the course for Screencastify on the JCPS NTI portal for the teacher toolkit, I really highly recommend that you do that, because once you create a presentation it just gives it that personal touch. So when I pushed this out to students and families, they were able to hear my voice, and I didn't have to worry so much about adding too much text to each slide like I wouldn't in a normal presentation. It gives it that personalized touch. So that's just my plug for Screencastify. If you haven't done that already, I highly recommend it. Okay, so my learning targets for the tips for students for learning at home, just that they will learn strategies and select 3 or more strategies to practice while they're at home. So the first thing, some of this may seem like common sense, but this is brand new for our students and for our families and for all of us. So don't overestimate what our students and families already know, because this may not be common sense to some of them. So the first one was find a quiet space. And in addition to me being able to talk and then hear my voice, we have a large BSL population. So them being able to hear the text was also helpful instead of having the pressure to read this. So when I went through, I just read all of these slides to them as well. So there may not be a perfect space, but where in your house has the least amount of noise? So is there a space that you could set up for this NTI learning so that you have the best chance of focusing?
Hey, Laura, while you're in transition there, we had some viewers request that we see if we can figure out our closed captioning. I think if you go into present mode there in the top right-hand corner, it'll give us an option for that in right down there at the bottom, I believe, under options for CC. There you go. And you can do medium. Should do it. And then if you exit that back out, hopefully it'll start to pick up here in a second. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for that feedback. Oh, sorry, one more time. Okay, so the next slide I had was just asking if they have any headphones laying around. So a strategy that we talk about in class often is using headphones while you are working. I know I do that when I'm working. I listen to soft music in the background, and it kind of helps block out those distractions around me. So that's a strategy that we try to practice if teachers allow it, or when I'm doing counseling in classrooms, I allow students to listen to soft music in the background as long as it's appropriate. But that's a strategy that I use when I'm working, and that could be really helpful for students who have large families and lots of distractions going on around them. So this is something that I do as a counselor when I start with students and start their day. We just set an intention or a goal for the day. So what is it that you want to accomplish? Maybe today it's just that you want to try to find a space that's more quiet than yesterday, or maybe math was really a struggle and I really want to focus on the fractions work that my teacher gave me. Whatever it is, setting an intention or a goal for the day just kind of helps them have a streamlined approach for whatever it is that they want to really focus on. And then this was just a visual for logging into assignments. And some of this has changed since the beginning when we initially pushed this out, but different grades were using different places to keep their assignments. So having the icon on the side hopefully helps parents and students just kind of identify a little bit more readily where exactly to go. So obviously our Kenwood NTI portal is the first place to check. And then kindergarten and first grade are still sending a lot of assignments through Class Dojo and communicating with families that way. And second grade has now moved with third, fourth, and fifth using Google Classroom. So just having students know where it is to even find their assignments. The next strategy was if they're stuck on an assignment, just tips and strategies to be able to access things that you need in a step-by-step basis. So the first strategy I gave was make sure you watched all the videos or read all the information your teacher sent first. That's the starting point. Then ask an adult, if you have an adult to ask at home or an older sibling, ask them if they can help. If not, no big deal. Your teacher's here to help. And so I wanted to highlight office hours because that's something new. We've never done that before. So check for office hours to see when your teacher's available. Feeling overwhelmed. So I'm sure most of us and lots of our families are feeling overwhelmed right now. These are just strategies we would use on a normal basis at Kenwood. Take a break and walk away for a minute, or use a movement break like Go Noodle. So when I have students in classrooms, we always practice taking deep belly breaths. So I just reminded them of that strategy here to either find their anchor, put both hands on their belly, and take 3 deep breaths. And we always breathe in for 3 and out for 3 together. And I have to be honest, I was using that strategy before this presentation because I was a little bit nervous, even though this is virtual. And then lots of students use a rainbow breath, which is a video on Go Noodle. If you've not checked out the Flow channel on Go Noodle, it's really awesome with giving student strategies just for deep breathing and calming. And then just a reminder, this is new for all of us. There's things that we're all learning, the staff, myself, students, families. So all we're expecting right now is that students stay in contact and try their best, and that's it. And then this was just an extension. I asked students to choose one of the strategies that we talked about and write about it, draw about it. They could choose any way to show their understanding, and then send it to me either on Class Dojo for kindergarten and first, or Google Classroom for second, third, fourth, and fifth. And then this was just some quick ways on how to reach me. So through Class Dojo, I've got a Google Calendar link there so they can schedule office hours through that, or my Google phone number. And then just from some feedback that we've received from parents, I went ahead and extended this for tips for parents themselves, because this is brand new for many of them, and it's a stressful time. So I'm just going to share this with you as well. And again, some of these may seem like common sense, but they may not be so common. So tips for parents. Our goal is to help decrease frustration. So the first strategy that I gave for them was the same one that I gave for students. Help your child find a quiet space. So set up an area that works best for you, limits noise, distraction. The second one was also the same, about where to log into the assignment. And this is updated because I've not pushed this out to parents yet, so I'm hoping to get that done today. The next one is to create a schedule. So in this, I'm going to talk about the structure that our students need, and just from staff members' point of view that also have students that go to Kenwood and they're working. They've created some daily schedules in different formats. So this was an example that, I hope Randy's okay with me sharing this, that she created with her daughter. And the most important thing that I've gotten feedback from was creating a checkbox. So in my screencast by appearance, I'm going to talk about that. Put a checkbox next to it. So anytime your child has completed an assignment, they can go and check it off, just as another visual that I'm done with that for the day. I've linked that full sample daily schedule here. And then another example, check it out, came from another staff member, but this was just what they had decided to do as a family. They have a huge whiteboard, and for both children, they have a daily schedule, including tablet time, bedtime, all of the things for their day on a whiteboard. And again, with the checkbox so that they can each go through and mark them off. Okay, the next one was just to start small. So we've had some feedback from families with students who are just really overwhelmed, who have sensory issues, and their parents are struggling to get them to do anything. And we completely understand that because they're out of their norm, and that's challenging for anybody, but especially students who require extra support during the school day. So just start small. try 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning, and if your child can work for a longer time, that's great too. So I just embedded a rainbow timer from YouTube, but I'm going to show families how to just search for timers on Google, and there's lots of different ones. I searched for a rainbow one in particular, so this one came up, and then from this screen they should be able to just see the timer if they wanted to use it from the screen. All right, this is a big one for us. So a lot of the things that we've been troubleshooting have become like popular, frequently asked questions, or parents are confused about who to go to for what. So I've tried to create kind of a short list of who do you contact when you need help. So this is just a general idea. If you need help with assignments, contact your child's teacher, because we do a lot of our communication through Class Dojo, and as the school administrator who kind of manages that, parents know that they see a lot from me. So I get a lot of direct messages with questions that I can't answer because I've not created the assignment. And though that may seem simple, I think that parents think I have an understanding of a lot more than I do, which I appreciate, but I don't know specifics of logins for Lexia or whatever it may be with an assignment. So helping families to streamline that. So if you need help with an assignment, contact your child's teacher. If you need help with technology, I wanted to make sure that families, we have almost 600 students, and Ms. Brown and myself have been fielding a lot of the technology questions. And so we've been backlogged with answering a lot of questions. So I wanted to provide families with a link to our Kenwood NTI portal with technology help. Ms. Brown did an amazing job of setting that up. So making sure parents have gone here first so that they can watch videos or how-tos or commonly asked questions are mostly shown or demoed there. So having them go there first, or then contact Ms. Brown or Ms. Donnelly. And then again, stuck on an assignment, make sure your child's watched all of the videos or read the information their teacher sent first. And then I've linked this help with technology page again here, because I don't think I can link that enough. I want to make sure that all of the work that Ms. Brown has done to help answer those questions is able to be seen by parents. So I'm going to link that in as many places as possible, because I know our families do need help, and it's nice to have those Screencast-ified tutorials of just step-by-step of how to do things. And then still stuck, your teachers are here to help. So you can sign up for an office hour. And one of the things that we've noticed in the last couple of weeks is that we weren't sure that families really understood what office hours were. So we've tried to make some explicit instructions on this is when to use office hours. If your child's stuck on an assignment, you can join your child's Google Meet during that time. Or if you're really struggling with technology, it's not letting you submit, you can set up for an app, schedule an office hour appointment. Just things like that, so that families are really clear on what they can accomplish during those office hours and how to access those. And then this feeling overwhelmed slide is basically the same, but I wanted to make sure that parents saw this too, because as a parent having a 2-year-old while also working, I'm feeling overwhelmed a lot too. So I'm needing to use these strategies also. And so I'm hoping in incorporating this slide into the parent tips that parents are using these strategies with their kids, because I know it's helpful when I use them too. And also just knowing that their kids can take a break. They don't have to be done at a certain time. I think most assignments are due on a weekly basis on Fridays, or whatever the case may be per teacher. But that assignments are more flexible. So if you need to walk away, it's okay. And I wanted to make sure that they knew how to sign up for a GoNoodle account, because a lot of strategies on that are great for just taking a movement break or doing those deep breathing exercises. And then same, the reminder this is new for all of us. And contact information again. So that's essentially what I have for learning at home with tips for students and for parents. Have there been any questions that I need to address?
Yeah, it looks like they've been knocking them down pretty well in the chat for you, Laura. That looks great. And as a parent of a kindergartner in JCPS, I picked up a lot of tips myself, so I really appreciate that. They love Go Noodle. You're right. That's an awesome resource. So
Awesome. Okay. There's one other thing that I can show since there's a few minutes if people would like to see this, but based on our I'm a family engagement lead as well. One thing that we are starting to push out to families just to get feedback on how students are feeling about their assignments and just in general. We've created this student exit slip, and this is just the modified version for our primary students and anybody who maybe struggles with reading or English or any of those things. So this Google form is just, it asks for their name, and then to make it user friendly, instead of having to read their teacher's name, they can find their picture, use their teacher. And then this is just a video to explain what I'm asking here. How did you feel about your work today? And then got the emoji to go with their answer. And then another just short screencastify. I've not already said how much I love screencastify. I do. This is just to explain the question again. Why did you feel this way? So maybe they were confident and they didn't have any struggles, or maybe they were really struggling with their reading, their math, or computer. Maybe it was just submitting to Google Classroom or ClassDojo. And then the last thing, is there anything you want to tell me? Because I think it's really important that we're staying in touch with our students right now, not just academically, but socially, emotionally. So if there's anything going on, hopefully they'll feel comfortable in addressing it in something like this. But that's just something else that we've created at the school.
well, thank you, Laura, for sharing that with us. Again, that exit slip, I love how you included from the Screencastify the videos on how to, what it was you needed. The emojis were awesome. Again, I think about my little 5-year-old that's learning all these skills, but without those visual resources, so that's huge. So great idea. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you so much.
All right. Laura, if that concludes your presentation, I will take a moment to show our viewers some of the opportunities coming up. Let's see here.
I think that's it. I was trying to go pretty fast.
Oh no, I know, Laura. I'm so sorry, and thank you for your patience. By the way, you did fantastic. This was my first day at this, if you hadn't noticed. So thank you to our viewers for their patience, and Laura and your team. You guys are great helping me troubleshoot. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Let's see here. Next, if you guys were not aware, if you're just joining us, if someone sent you a link and you were popping in to see what all the fuss was about, all the buzz, you can join us at jcps.me/NTI to find the schedule. And you will see a listing of all of the upcoming virtual shows. If there's a topic that you're particularly passionate about and you'd like to see, if you head up to the top and hit the NTI Teacher Toolkit, tons of resources here, by the way, but in particular, this schedule is available under the virtual training schedule. And as you navigate to that virtual training schedule, you will see that we want to be in the week of April 13th. And if you're curious to look ahead, you're welcome to do that. Lots on the way there. And next, it looks like we have trauma-informed care coming up on the schedule today for the 1 o'clock session. So without further ado, I will turn that over to Miss LaMesa here and let her get us some knowledge on trauma-informed care and take care of us. So welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
All right, thank you so much. We're happy to be back, We're happy to be back. Thank you.
Absolutely.
My name is Dr. Lamisa Marks-Johns, and I am in charge of trauma-informed care and social-emotional learning with Jefferson County. And I have with me today Jen. You want to introduce yourself, Jen?
Hello, I'm Jennifer Driscoll. So glad to be with you guys today.
All right, so we're going to talk to you about, well, first let me tell you this. In our chat box, we have Christina Johnson. She's going to be there in the chat box to answer any questions that you may have. And also Lisa McGarry, she is our other awesome resource teacher, and she's going to be helping us with our PowerPoint presentation. So we're ready, Lisa. All right, so here in the beginning, we have our contact information in case you would like to contact any of us with any questions, any support or resources that you may need. Please feel free to do so. We will share this contact information again with you at the end of the presentation. So here are our training goals for today. We're going to review the basic elements of trauma. We're going to discuss some areas of concern, especially when teaching our trauma-exposed students in this virtual learning platform. And Jen is going to give us some great strategies that will support our trauma-exposed students during this time as well. And so every time we do any type of training, we always do what we call a self-care alert. And especially when you're talking about trauma, this is very important because when you talk about trauma, of course, you think about trauma. And it could either be your own trauma or the trauma of some of the students that you work with every day. And so if during our presentation this happens, we always say, please feel free to just step away from the computer and take a break. Talk to someone that you trust. You can hit up Shay in our chat box, of course, or you can phone a friend. You can send a text message. You can shoot us an email, or you can do something relaxing, intentionally breathing, inhaling and exhaling, and getting your mind and your body to calm. That will also help. So in our chat box, think about what are some concerns that you may have about teaching trauma-exposed students during this time. And so we can really come back to this. We're posing this question and we can come back to it later. What are some concerns that you may have? All right, so what is trauma? This is the definition that we are using for trauma. Of course, there's many definitions, but this is the definition when we go around and do our trauma training that we utilize. And so it is witnessing or experiencing an event that poses a real or a perceived threat of death, serious injury, or sexual violation. And this event is unique to the experience of the individual. We always like to say that trauma really is in the eye of the beholder. And so that is really something for you to think about during this time. Some of your students, some of your kiddos, staying at home may not be a big deal to them. I don't know which kid that it's not a big deal to, but maybe. I have, grandkids in the system. My oldest granddaughter is 17, and this is very traumatic for her because she's, a social butterfly. She likes to be around her friends in the school setting. And, she loves her teachers and she, loves her administrator. So this is a time that is extremely hard for her. For others of our kiddos too, school is considered a safe place for them. And so with them not being in that safe place, with them not being with the people that they have those authentic relationships with, it's very hard for them. So please, keep that in mind when you're working with your kids. I was talking to some of my team, and of course, you all know Shay, she's a very extroverted individual. So this time of having to socially isolate and separate is very hard for her. Me, I like to consider myself an introverted extrovert. You know, I love being around people. I love to have fun. I love to party. I love to laugh. But I'm also pretty much a couch potato outside of all that. And I like to stay at home and drink coffee and watch judge shows. And so, you know, this time of being alone, but with people is not so much traumatizing for me. And if it does become so, if I go out and take a walk or, you know, go to Kroger and get my essentials, I'm usually good for a while. So keep all of that into consideration when working with our students, what type of individuals the students are themselves.
If I may interject briefly, Lisa, if you could do me a favor, at the bottom of your PowerPoint that you're presenting, can you see if you get an option for that CC, that closed captioning? Let's click on that. Let's see if we can get there. Telling me that it should still pick up her voice. If you carry on, let's see if we can get that at the bottom. Go right ahead. My apologies. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So here are some areas that Jen is going to get into great detail with you about some areas of concern that our kiddos may have. One has to do with assistive safety. With our students who have had lots of trauma exposure, safety is extremely key. Not so much physical safety, though it can be physical safety, but more so psychological safety, emotional safety, and even academic safety during this time of virtual learning, during NTI. And so that is extremely important to be able to discuss how in this setting we can help our students feel safe. And also another area is connection, being able to connect not only to other students and the teacher, but another thing to think about, because I've been listening to some very awesome trainings throughout today, also being able to make connections with the content that you all are teaching during this time. So think about that and think about the students that you're teaching and how you can make them or inspire them or encourage them to connect through that content as well. Another a concern is, our kiddos are experiencing a lot of worry and anxiety. Of course, also that loss of community because they're not with their friends, and relationships. Relationships is extremely key. And the data tells us that really relationship building is the number one protective factor of our students that have experienced a lot of trauma. And so I'm going to let Jen take it away from here.
All right, so we're going to really dive in and talk about a lot of different things when it comes to traumas that our students experience and different things that they're going through throughout this time. But when we talk about them, I don't want you just to think about these different strategies and how they can work with our students. I also want you to think about how these can relate to us as individuals and as us as adults. Because a lot of times when we think about trauma, we think about those kids over there or those people over there. But trauma is also right here. It's also us as adults and the weights that we're carrying. So when we think about all of these different areas to consider, I want you to also think about how this can support me as an educator and the work that I'm doing each and every day. But I also want you to think about this a little bit differently. Because when we think about supporting our trauma-exposed students right now, we really have to dive in and think about the work that we're doing in a new and different way. Because we can't support our students the same way we've always supported them before. So let's dive in and look at these new areas to consider. The first one we're going to talk about, Lamisa touched on, and it's safety. Hold on, I'm going to see if Lisa's got this slide for us. Maybe. If not, I'll keep going. All right, so safety is this belief and idea that I'm going to be taken care of, that my needs are going to be met no matter what happens, that I'm always going to be protected from harm, and that those around me will be safe. And so I want you to think about how this is going to be threatened for some of your trauma-exposed students. I want you to think about how this would feel for some of your students who have experienced trauma in the past, how this might be triggered for some of those kiddos. But I also want you to think about some of your students who may not have experienced trauma before and who are experiencing trauma now for the very first time. They might be experiencing safety concerns for the very first time than they ever have. Because of this virus, a lot of our students have their safety being threatened because they're scared of if their needs are going to be met. They're scared of, am I going to have food insecurities? Am I going to get the virus? And so what we have now is a lot of our students, not just their physical safety concerns, but they also have emotional and psychological safety concerns that are going on. And so as educators, safety is one of those things that we've always worked to protect. And so one of the things that we have to think about is how can we create that soft landing spot for our students throughout NTI, throughout this virtual learning platform. So one of the things that we're going to talk about are some strategies that we can utilize through a virtual learning platform that can really encourage and support safety. So here are a few strategies that we've come up for you guys that will really support safety throughout this NTI process. The first one that we're going to talk about is providing space and encouraging students to connect and talk about their safety concerns. Now, I know a lot of us are thinking, okay, how in the world could I do that throughout a screen? Well, one of the ways that we can do that is through the relationships that we've created with our students. So I really encourage you to continue those relationships that you've built. Also encourage your students to talk to friends or family members, either through the phone or whatever means that they're comfortable with. Because when we encourage our students to talk about the things that they're concerned about, it really helps them to understand that we're in this together and that they're going to be okay. Also, help students to plan virtual play dates. This will really help them to distract from the things that they're worried about. So I have two students in JCPS, a fourth grader and a seventh grader. And my seventh grader tends to be an overly anxious person. She analyzes everything. She knows a little bit too much. And so one of the things that we really encouraged her to do is to plan virtual hangout sessions with her friends. This is a way for her to continue on with her norm, but not overanalyze everything that she has coming into her at this present time. So encourage your students to do that, but also be present in the things that you're doing and strive to keep your routine with your students as predictable as possible during the time that you're working together. So what I mean by that is, if you set a plan in the beginning that you're going to have assignments set on Monday and they're going to be due on Friday, continue with that. And then if you set forth the idea that you're going to have a Google Meet every Wednesday, make sure that you maintain that process, because your students start to look for those things and those expectations. And then that reinforces that sense of psychological safety within them. And it reminds them that even though I can't see you face to face, that you're going to be there for me and that I can still depend upon you to be that person in my life. So think about some of those things that you can continue to do to support that safety piece in your kiddos' lives. The next area that we're going to talk about that we need to consider with our students is this idea of connectedness. And so connectedness refers to having someone that you can depend on or have a relationship with that gets you, that understands you and supports you. So think about this for our students. Connection is key for everything that our students do, especially for our trauma-exposed students. That is what they thrive on and what they depend on more than anything. But connection, as we traditionally know it, is being threatened right now because we can't go to those typical ways that we connect. We can't have our check-in and check-outs. We can't utilize body language to know if one of our students is struggling or see the look on their faces. Our students can't connect the way that they typically do. They can't go on a playground and play or go to baseball games or hang out on Friday nights. And so one of the things that we have to think about is how do we allow kids to connect in new and different ways? Because connection is the key of everything that we do as educators. It goes back to that old adage of kids don't care what you know until they know that you care. That's still key throughout NTI, because a relationship is the cornerstone of everything that we do in education. So let's talk about some ways that we can support connection throughout a virtual learning platform. And one of the things that I want you to do is, if you have found some amazing ways to connect with your students, I want you to share those in the chat box, because a great educator is nothing if they don't share and steal good ideas. So please make sure that you are sharing those great ideas, and then we will kind of tag team those and share them out. So one of the things I want you to do is make time to ask your students about something fun that they're doing right now. Here's the deal. I get it. I was a classroom educator for years. I know the pressure that we are all feeling right now. We are overwhelmed. We are stressed out about the standards that we're supposed to be meeting and that we haven't yet met, or that we're worried about meeting. I get it. Trust me. But right now, the most important thing that you can be doing is connecting with your kids. They miss you. I don't care if you teach 12th grade or kindergarten. Those kids miss seeing your face each and every day. And so make time to see how they're doing, to ask them about something fun that's going on in their life. Because if nothing fun has happened yet, this is going to encourage them to go out and do something fun. Make sure that you greet them by name and create some type of virtual routine with the time that you do get together. Think about how many Zoom or Google Meets you've had within the past day. How important was it that somebody said, hey, so-and-so, how are you doing? It feels so good when I sit down in my Google Meets that my team looks at me and says, hey, Jen, how's it going? And I'm able just to respond in kind. Those things are vital for us as human beings, because it's so important that the people outside of our four walls recognize us. Our students need that as well, because it reminds them that they're not alone, that they're not battling whatever is going on in their lives on their own. Consider still putting students together in small groups. I know that right now we are thinking, okay, we've got to just give them this assignment and get it done. But let them know that they can still work together as teams. This is such a beautiful thing that we can allow kids to do. They can text, they can call each other on the phone, they can schedule their own Google Meets to work together. You can put it together for them. My daughter's doing this in her drama class right now. They are writing and filming a skit via Google Meet. Allow kids to do that, even if it's something as simple as doing a scavenger hunt. This allows kids to still work together, and that collaborative learning piece is vital for all of our students. It doesn't matter the age, the range, what they're doing. They need collaboration. They need connection. It's going to help them thrive. But also talk directly about how important connection is. Tell them that they need to connect with others. Because when our students understand that it's important that they connect, then they start to think about it. And it reminds them that they don't have to isolate. Social distance doesn't mean social isolation. And that's going to remind our students that it's okay for them to respond to other people, to reach out if they need it. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is this idea of hope. And hope is probably one of my favorite ones for us to touch on, because hope gives us the idea that even though things aren't okay in this minute, that they're going to be all right. And so I want you to think about this for your trauma-exposed students as well as for yourself. Because hope gives us the belief that we're going to get through this and that we're going to get through it together. For a lot of our trauma-exposed students, they don't always have this belief. They don't always have that feeling that they've got this, especially when their schedule has changed, their routines aren't the same, and the things and the people that they generally go to for hope have been taken away from them. So I want you to think about strategies in which that we can use to infuse hope back into our lives. So here's a few that we're going to share with you. And if you have some, I want you to also share those in the chat box. So here are a few strategies that will really help you to inspire hope within your students' lives. The first one is to get students talking about or talking to people who've been through a tough time, and get them to ask those people how they stayed hopeful in troubled times. That's a great way for our students to think about what it means to be resilient. It's a great way for us to get students to think about what it means to be hopeful even when times are tough. And see, resilience is a beautiful thing because it gets our students to understand that life's not always going to be easy, but that's okay because we can bend, but we don't have to break. The next one is a really, really good one because not only does it teach students about hope, but it's also a cross-curricular activity. Teach students about other historical times of crisis, but include how these ended and how communities rebounded from these times. So you could do this in a social studies class, but then have students write about it in an ELA class. So you could kill several birds with one stone and also have students understand the beauty of hope and resilience within that. So there's so many great things that can be done with this one activity. Encourage students to share some of the many stories of hope that are occurring out of this current crisis right now. They're everywhere. Turn on the news and you're going to see people coming together and learning how to rebound and rebuild. You'll see our schools doing amazing things. I see it every time I turn on the news. Awesome teachers doing great work each and every day, even though they are stressed out. You guys are out there killing the game. So let students know that hope is out there and find different ways that you can allow them to share it. Because when they start talking about hope, they start feeling more hopeful themselves. So we're going to talk about a few more strategies that really support our trauma-exposed students during this time. The next one we're going to talk about is that a little R&R goes a really long way. And so what do I mean by that? I mean that you should allow relationships and routine to guide everything that you're doing right now. I get it. You are so worried about all these other things that you have to do. You are overwhelmed, and we have all of these things that are on our plates. But building positive relationships should take priority over everything right now because those relationships can guide the way for everything else. Our students need those relationships more than they need anything else. So maintain that attitude of inclusivity. Set a routine for the time that you work together, but understand that it's fine to be flexible. Because by falling back on those relationships, but allowing flexibility when it's needed, it reminds students that the caring adults in their lives can and will take care of them. And that just reinforces that psychological safety. It tells them, hey, we've got this. And we're going to get through it no matter what happens. Here's a few more strategies that can really support our trauma-exposed students. And these can really help out with any of our students throughout this time period. So when looking at them, they include things like reminding or trying to connect with our students in any way that we can, and just making sure that we're connecting throughout the day. So you can look for connection in any way that you can. Sending emails is a great way to do it, or phone calls. Making sure that we're starting each session with a check-in. This can be similar to your morning meeting if you're an elementary school person, or to advisory if you're a high school or middle school person. But this is a great way for our students to know that you still care about them. And since we don't have our check-in, check-out process, this is just a beautiful way for our students to know that you're still there and you've still got them. If you do a Google form, you can do your check-in question that way. And so it can be something as simple as, how are you doing today? And you can have them respond on a scale of 1 to 5. But that check-in process is a beautiful way for you to do it. Another great strategy to utilize is to value effort. Remember, not all of our students have the same homes. And so some of our students are sharing multiple devices. Some of them have parents who are essential workers, and so they are working 14 to 16 hours a day, and those students are being parentified. And so it's really important that we understand that a little bit of effort for some of our students goes a really long way. The last few things that I want you to think about as we start to think about these strategies are things like the fact that executive functioning might be delayed right now, not just for our students, but for all of us. We're not going to be processing at the exact same speed. And so when you give out instructions, think about giving them out a little more slowly. Think about giving them out one at a time, and also giving them out in different ways. So if you form a video or record a video, also try to make sure that you send it out in writing as well, because our kids and us as adults, we're going to be processing things a lot differently. And so make sure that we understand that and that we give some flexibility in that, but also have very realistic expectations for yourself and for the students that you work with. There are going to be days where you wake up and you are ready to go and you're knocking it out of the park and you get done 4 hours of work without even flinching. But then there are days when you wake up and you just aren't feeling it. Because think about it. You have completely redefined the way you live, the way you work, the way that we communicate, the way that we do life in a matter of weeks. Some of us have processed that trauma and we're doing beautifully with it. But others are processing that trauma in waves. And for some of us, we may not even realize it for weeks to come. And so with that, we have to have realistic expectations about the way that we operate in our day-to-day lives, because it's going to have an effect on the way that we work and the way that we handle things. So understand that, and also understand that it's okay if there are days where things just aren't working as well as they should be. So I'm going to leave you with a quote, and then we'll check and see if there are any questions that we need to respond to. And I want you to let this quote kind of motivate you as you think about the work that you're doing over the next couple of weeks, and also just as you kind of create your new normal. So I think it should be coming up on the next screen, maybe. I don't have that one memorized, sorry. Okay, there we go. Sorry, guys. It says relationship before rigor, grace before grades, patience before program, and love before lessons. So what I want you to think about is, how can you allow this to guide you in the work that you're doing? How can you allow this to guide you as you kind of create your new normal? Because we can all use a little love and grace throughout this time, because it's a brand new normal for all of us. So as you move throughout this, just know that you are not doing this work alone, and that we are here to support you in anything that you need. So please feel free to reach out to us. And if there are any questions that we can answer, we're more than happy to do so.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. I will tell you as well, many moons ago, I was a career and technical education teacher. And when I first got into it, I was so excited about teaching about business and computers and all that stuff. But I found quickly that the part that I most enjoyed was what you were describing, whenever you became a safe place for them to go, where you could listen to student concerns and be there for them. So very powerful and a very important part of what they normally get from us. So thank you for giving us all those strategies to continue those relationships throughout this strange and wild world we're in right now. So thank you.
Right? Thank you.
And if you all can think of any way that we can support you during this time, or any resources that we can offer to you, please feel free to reach out to us via email, and we will help you. We will do what we can to assist.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. Here shortly, we're going to turn it over to a new group. But if you're just joining us and curious to see how you can fill in on all the action that's coming our way, if you head to jcps.me/NTI and then reach your way up to the teacher toolkit here, you will find the virtual training schedule. And that'll kind of show you what's coming down the pipe in the coming weeks. So you've got all the way through week ending April 20th, so on and so forth. We continue to populate this, and it's always growing. So if you missed a session or you're interested in something coming up, this will show you what time and what day of the week that you can find that to join us. So it looks like today, the 16th for Thursday, we're going to turn it over to a high school counseling team here shortly. NTI Counseling Support Systems for High School with Jessica Benson, Christy Brockman, and a personal friend of mine and former coworker, Miss Jasmine Drinkard. Hello, Jasmine. How are you? Good to see you, girl.
Hey, Kyle. It's so good to see you. You doing all right?
Yes, ma'am. Hanging in there. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to turn it over to your crack team, and if you guys will watch the chat, if you've got folks out there, and I'll try to do the same. Are you guys going to be presenting a slide deck today, Jasmine?
Yes, Jessica Benson is running that for us.
Awesome. Okay, Jessica, I'll flip over to you whenever you're ready. If you could do me a favor in the bottom of your slide, yes, ma'am. If you'll hit that closed caption button, that's huge. That should pick up a lot of the text for us. So you guys go right ahead, and I appreciate it. Holler if you need me.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Christy Brockman, and I'm a counselor at Wagner High School. I think you introduced everybody. Also here today is Jessica Benson at Southern High School and Jasmine Drinkard from Louisville Male High School. On our first slide, is it up there? Okay, perfect. These are the topics that we're going to be covering today. I will be discussing academic supports and services. Jasmine will go over college and career counseling and transition services. And then Jessica will review personal social support, including our district crisis counseling response. This all information came about prior to students returning from the first 2 weeks of the shutdown from COVID-19. Counselor leadership met during that time and reviewed what counseling could look like during non-traditional instruction, with us delivering services remotely through online platforms. And we developed very specific plans for each of the areas we're going to review today: the academic, the personal social, and the college and career development. Jessica, if you'd like to go forward, perfect. So what I'm going to discuss today is the academic counseling section or portion of this. If you look down at the bottom right-hand corner, the detailed plan that counselor leadership developed is linked in the presentation. And what I'm trying to present today is a little bit more in terms of how I'm implementing these things at Wagner. So I'm providing this from a lens of Wagner High School. However, all of the things that are discussed are things that students or that counselors would provide at every school, even if those services are implemented in a different way than the way that I present today. So one of our major endeavors as academic counselors is to monitor student progress towards graduation. We look at grades, transcripts, progress towards graduation requirements, transition readiness, backpack defenses, and all of these things. We check those regularly for every student on our caseload to make sure that they are making adequate or better than adequate academic progress. In order to do so, we have to collaborate with a lot of people in our buildings because we can't run every single program. So depending on what the building structure is, we may be working with BACs or backpack coordinators, ILP coordinators to ensure that all of the requirements are being completed for each of our students. When we look at those requirements and we find students that are struggling in some way, then we work on communicating. Well, not just struggling, but any student that needs assistance, we work on communicating with them. And that has to look different. So in terms of how non-traditional instruction has changed that is that our platforms communicating with students and teachers in particular have changed. And to some extent with parents have changed. One of the things that Wagner did was create a new website, and we specifically asked for counselors to be included on that website and have our own web pages that shared with students and parents new contact information. So Jessica's brought up my website. Our counseling staff has tried to tailor our websites to look similar so that it's consistent for all of the students in our building. And a variety of contact information is listed on this website that is new. A lot of the programs that we are learning are new to us. So there's definitely been a learning curve there. One of the things that I included that was very important, all of the counselors at Wagner, we have appointment requests, and these are very common across JCPS counselors. They might look a little different at individual schools. I believe Jessica's bringing that up. This one, we redesigned a little bit. One of the things that I added that wasn't on there before was how best to contact them, because normally I would call a student down to my office to have a conversation in person, and now I can't do that. So how do they want me to contact them? And providing that information, if they prefer a personal email versus a school email or their own cell phone number, what does that look like? So that's a new service that's been involved. In addition, we would have lots of walk-in appointments for both students and teachers. Our doors, we have an open door policy. Most counseling offices do. And so those walk-ins or check-ins that would happen quickly in hallway passing or transition time, those are no longer feasible. So one of the things we've implemented at our building for teachers is office hours, Zoom office hours. So this is a private Zoom call where teachers can come in individually. They go into a waiting room first, and then we admit them as our previous conversation finishes up. And so this gives teachers an opportunity to discuss their concerns. And as many counselors out there know, sometimes those concerns are personal. They aren't always student related. So sometimes teachers can come to us with student concerns, and we will discuss those. But they might also just need to talk to someone about some of the struggles balancing their own workload as well as parenting small children, things like that are challenging for teachers at this time. Another way to communicate with students, we've learned lots of new Google platforms. I already had in place a Google Classroom and a Remind account. These are ways that I can push out large scale announcements to my entire class. I have one, I work with an upper level academy for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And I have a class of 2020, class of 2021, and a class of 2022 Remind group for each of those, so that I can send out announcements quickly to groups of students. Other things that I know counselors across the district have implemented and are using are newsletters and blogs about how to cope. On those communication platforms, what we are including, there are academic support services, as well as instructional videos on coping skills, study skills, communication with your teachers, self-monitoring to help students through the crisis, as a lot of their world is completely changing and turned upside down. When we look at students that are in Tier 3, are at-risk students, one of the big things with non-traditional instruction is to make sure that students are engaged, so that we are connecting with them and tracking in particular the ones that aren't, and making efforts to reach out to those. So one of the things that we're doing at Wagner is a weekly academy meeting. We just had that this morning, where we broke out into small groups, and we go through and we talk about every student who we have not heard from, and how many people have tried, and what that looks like, and what we know, kind of resource sharing, to find out if there is someone who has reached out and successfully met with that student, what do we need to do to get that child plugged into the rest of their academic classes. We also, as counselors, maintain a list of students that we have concerns about for graduation. That list was in place before we went to NTI, but we also want to ensure that we don't lose any of those seniors now with the additional barrier of trying to learn and complete their coursework virtually. As a result of those concerns, we've then created a mentoring program. And this mentoring program is pairing up a group of students with a mentor from our clerical staff that is another layer, in addition to teachers and counselors, that is checking on those students at a minimum on a weekly basis to make sure they have what they need, that they have someone to talk to, that we receive information if there are barriers that the school can then try to help support the student through solving. And then we also still continue to provide referrals as necessary to mental health care practitioners, community resources, and other staff that may be able to assist us in helping that family. And so the last thing I want to really touch base on is the teacher and counselor collaboration portion. This is huge. We have large caseloads, and sometimes students don't know that they can come directly to us. They might go through a teacher first, or they might be more engaged because they know they need to do their schoolwork there, and so they don't always see the counselor as their first line of response. So for teachers, what we want to do is support you in your endeavors to work with students, but we also need you to communicate with us of any concerns that come your way. So if you know about a student, if a teacher knows about a student that does not have access to something that they need, making sure that the counselor is also aware of that information helps us solve those issues and solve those concerns. We also can use help from teachers in helping in teaching students or helping them navigate the new resources for contacting us. They may know of a specific need, and the child wants to talk to the counselor but might not know how to find or navigate or use the new online platforms. So just talking those kids through that and letting them know, yes, we're here, and yes, we want to talk to them, yes, we want to support them, helps that student bridge the gap sometimes that exists between between communication. And then lastly, supporting those struggling students. There are some opportunities now for students to engage in complete online work to recover coursework that may have been more challenging. They have more time on their hands, some of them that are not working. Some of them are working and have less time on their hands. So making sure that when we're looking at those struggling students, that we are connecting them to the right resources so that they continue making progress towards graduation. We do not want their graduation to be imperiled due to the closure of in-school facilities right now. Okay, I think I'm going to turn it over to Jasmine for career and college counseling.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Jasmine Drinkard. I'm a school counselor at Louisville Mill, and I'm going to talk about the college, career, and transition side. So I'll let Jessica get to that next slide. Okay, I don't know if we're stuck a little bit. Are we stuck, Jessica?
Let me bounce around here real quick, bounce around and see if that helps us any. So we can get back on Jessica's screen for us.
Well, I will share that right now at this time, it's obviously an odd time, and specifically in regards to college counseling. And I will say the biggest reason for that is that so many things are changing, specifically on the college side and just day by day. So this is one of those areas where staying in the know with information is most helpful to students. And a lot of school counselors are doing that right now to make sure that they can give students the most up-to-date information. Right, Jessica said that she did not hear me.
I can hear you on my end, Jasmine. And I can see Jessica's icon.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like she dropped out, so she may be rejoining us here in a moment. As a matter of fact, if you guys have contact info, here she comes. Looks like maybe she's getting ready to hop back in on us.
Okay.
Those websites look awesome and all amazing way to transition to kind of a digital, workplace to still conduct the business that's to be done. There's still a lot of work to do, and you guys putting that infrastructure together so quickly, amongst you all look great. So very encouraging. I've as you know, I'm intimately aware of how complex a lot of that stuff can be, especially at the high school level. So kudos to your team. Let's see
awesome.
if we can.
I will say too, just like with a lot of stuff that Christy shared, luckily I will say probably, I would say it's been about 2 or 3 years. I think Christy and Jessica will agree. The school counseling role group has really gotten on board with Google and using Google Forms as a way to meet with students and document our meeting with students. So the good thing is, because we kind of got on the bandwagon early, it's kind of helped things kind of be in place right now. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. I think we've got Jessica back now, and I believe we see her screen.
All right, awesome. Okay, so I will pick up here. So a lot of students really, I'm going to focus on seniors, honestly, just because, they are the ones that need the most help with helping them transition because they're the closest to it. So a lot of our seniors tend to fall into one of two categories. Either they have applied and they're ready to go, or they're still in that transition, or they're still in that college application process, simply because, a lot of times students are waiting for their grades to come up. ACT, a lot of students are, they were planning on retaking the ACT. And so with that being said, we're still processing transcripts through Parchment. That's what we do as a district. So if students need transcripts, they definitely can still request it that way. Definitely as counselors, we're working with the institutions. So a lot of times, a lot of institutions are sending me lists of students who need their transcripts sent just because some students may not have access to internet or technology. So, they're not going to be able to request their transcript, but that's a burden that we can take off as a counselor, take off of the families and the students. Same with Coyote scores. Those are still documents that we can send along with any other Common App or secondary school report items that's needed for college admissions. One of the big things that I want to share is that, many institutions are starting to waive the ACT in lieu of recent events with coronavirus. So some of those are Murray State, Indiana University Southeast, Thomas More, University of Kentucky. And then you have a slew of schools that were either exploring or they already are test optional, such as Spalding University or Transy. So with that being said, we're kind of seeing this shift of the colleges making changes and adapting to where students are right now to meet their needs so that, they can transition and they can go ahead and get admitted. As far as all of our other students, 9 through 11, specifically with our juniors, we use this time to focus on them doing some virtual college visits. Right now is the time that we ask our juniors to start thinking about where they plan to apply really in a couple of months, in August. But unfortunately, they're not able to go on college visits. So a lot of colleges are adapting and changing, and they are offering virtual college visits on their sites. And they're doing virtual Q&A with students on multiple platforms, which feeds into the power of the college rep. Every JCPS school and pretty much every school in the state has an assigned college admissions counselor from the institution. So definitely connecting students to that college admissions counselor so that whatever their needs are for that transition can be met. We have a great partnership with them as school counselors, and they really help with that transition. Many of them are reaching out to students, be it via email, text message, virtual video conferencing platforms, and they're reaching out to them about registration, what their institution plans to do for them to register in orientation and housing. I will say one of the biggest concerns right now at the front of my mind and a lot of other students and families, honestly, is financial aid. A lot of students completed the FAFSA with that October 1 deadline. Every school did a big push for the October 1 deadline to get kids to apply. And now, a lot of families' financial status is different right now. Parents are either laid off or, you have people who have saved all of their money, to pay for their child's college, but now the market is not doing what we want it to do. And so there's money, that's lost there. So, in that event, definitely this is where as a school counselor, we will reach out to the college admissions rep and connect that student and their family to the financial aid office. Typically, once a student is admitted to a university, they are assigned a financial aid counselor. And I always think it's a good idea that if there is a change in the financial contribution or financial status of the family, that they communicate it with them, because they have a lot of things they can do at their discretion. So definitely connecting them to that. Go to the next slide.
Hey, Jessica, real quick while you're transitioning, I think when we got you back, it might have turned off that closed caption. Yeah, if you tap that for us again. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Jasmine. My apologies.
Okay, no worries. So right now, the biggest thing that every school counselor is working on as well with our seniors is the My Senior To-Do List. We've talked about a couple of those things, but I'll have Jessica click on that so I can talk about some things that were not mentioned. Right now, ordering the caps and gowns and paying school fees, this is really a school by school. The way that this has been tackled it really varies school to school. Obviously, the last thing we want as school counselors is for any student or family to go into any more financial strain over a cap and gown or school fees. So, if a student and their family are wanting to order that cap and gown, as a keepsake, and in preparation for graduation, should that happen, they can go ahead and do that. But definitely if it is a financial burden, that's not something that we're wanting students to do. Definitely as teachers, we really need you all's help with helping sure students are on the path to success, specifically our seniors in graduating on time. So making sure that they're completing all of their classes. And, if you have a senior in your class and they're not passing your class at this time, we really want to encourage you to put them on some type of credit or content recovery plan so that student can, get to the point to where they can graduate, so we can go ahead and transition them to the next phase of their life. As far as the senior defense for their backpacks, every school is kind of creating ways to deal with this. At our school, specifically at Louisville Mill, we're having students upload their presentation and either doing a voiceover or calling whoever is going to score it to walk us through it. So, in this arena, I would encourage teachers to make sure that, even in the era of NTI, creating things that are backpack worthy, things that students can put in their backpack, so that the backpack is not an extra, we don't want the senior backpack to be defense to be an extra burden, right? So if you are creating content in your class that they can put in there, that removes one extra layer of stress. The senior transition survey, that is something that's sent out from the district. It's a huge data collection tool for the district that kind of tracks how much money students get for college, where they plan to attend college, and various other forms of information. So every senior has this in their email, to just mention that in your classroom for them to be on the lookout for that and complete that would be a huge help. We've talked about parchment. We've talked about finalizing college preparations. In regards to our athletes, we are definitely working with our senior athletes if they are still in the process of completing that NCAA eligibility center. SOD, as far as uploading transcripts, fee waivers, things like that. And then we're definitely still working with students to finalize whatever is necessary for the military. So, and going back to the slide, here I have listed a lot of resources. So at your leisure, you can look at any of them. But if we can go to the scholarship link, I believe I fixed that from yesterday. So every high school has their own platform as to how they choose to share that information. Jessica, if you could go up to the top right, kind of where there's the grid under that JCPS. So this is basically, it's a Google Drive that we share with our families. And here we list all of our scholarships. So any scholarship that comes through our email, and even now, mail, we scan, we upload it and make it available for our students to have access to. We even archive our scholarships. We encourage our juniors, 9th through 11th grade students to go and look at the archive scholarships, because a lot of them come back every year. So, a lot of times I tell kids to go and look at the archive scholarships so you can see, hey, what kind of GPA should you have? What kind of ACT score are they looking for? Are they even looking for an ACT score or a certain GPA? So, so definitely making sure that you know what platform your counseling office is using to incorporate that. Definitely, if you teach a class that leans itself towards essay writing, maybe even helping students apply for colleges during this time or apply for scholarships during this time would be a great use of that time for them, especially since everyone is under financial strain right now. And so any additional money is going to help any family. So, definitely making sure you know what those platforms are so that we can help our kids get some money for school. So outside of that, the last resource on there is Kia. So they have tons of information on planning for college and planning for the future. And that's definitely a website that students can go to 9 through 12 to see a detailed timeline on what they should be doing. So I would just share the biggest thing is right now, the flexibility, which we're all talking about in every aspect, patience as well, but most importantly, connecting students to the resources and to people who can help move their transition forward. And that's really the work that we're doing as school counselors. So your partnership will be great. And then there's a detailed college and career plan down there below for you to view. Thank you.
All right. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Jessica Benson, and I'm going to finish us up with talking about how counselors are supporting students with personal and social development while we're on NTI days. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I know that we're coming up on our last few minutes. The main thing that counselors are continuing to do, and we want to make sure teachers know that we are doing, is we are definitely we're communicating and we are facilitating, communication and connection between students and staff and families. We still are making plans for students who need support with their mental wellness or mental health. We are consistently checking in with students, checking in with teachers and all staff, just so that we have a good idea of where students are with their personal and social development. We are creating watch lists, just like Christy talked about watch lists for academic. We're doing the same thing for personal social. When teachers are doing like check-ins with students, and then they get together when they're PLCs at Southern, what they're doing is they have a portion of a sheet that they have that they go over during their PLC, and they're creating a watch list of students that they think need to touch base with their counselor. We also have updated our counselor request so that students can ask specifically for a one-to-one contact, just to get a good check-in or to get help with their mental wellness. Another thing is counselors are working to empower students once they let us know that they may be struggling with motivation or just social issues with isolation, anything connected to their mental wellness. We're empowering them to find solutions. I know a group of my seniors have a motivational group that they have together, and we're working together to connect them with a staff member to help support them through that process. But they've really appreciated support and helping them to empower themselves and find solutions that they can tailor to their own wants and needs during this time. We also have virtual recorded sessions to help students with their personal and social development. Every newsletter in Google Classroom touches on mental wellness, and we're offering biweekly check-ins. One thing that a lot of people are doing around this time is they are having virtual campaigns, and one that we are going to implement is a Stress Less Week. I'm going to click on some information that I'm going to share as part of our Stress Less Week. We are going to have daily minute meditation, links to yoga or exercise classes that students can do. During our Stress Less Week at school, we had emotional support dogs, and what we've done here for the virtual version of it is we have a link to our article that talks about how you can do different things with your pets for stress relief. And there's also a large section on overall coping skills for students, and you see an infographic here that talks about focusing on your strengths and sleep. And there are several links below that give students and families ways to plan for stress, dealing with loneliness, and especially for seniors, things that they can do dealing with grief and loss of their senior year, and a lot of things they may have planned for their senior year. So that's a campaign that we plan on doing to support students' mental wellness. Last but not least, we of course have things in place in the event of a crisis, or a student who may be suicidal, or one who may struggle with their mental wellness or mental health. We are partnering with our mental health practitioners in order to make sure that students have access to weekly meetings, and also we're helping them to get consent forms just to facilitate that, because they do have telehealth consent forms that are required at this time. We're also making sure that students and staff understand there's limited confidentiality. So a lot of that is just, again, making sure that everyone's appropriately communicated with as far as the services that we can provide. We are offering Centerstone and the Brook via virtual options, so we're making sure that everyone knows that those options are still available. Counselors still creating safety plans as necessary, and we are making sure to advertise the suicide hotline. One other thing I want to make sure teachers are aware of is that we still have the duty to report for child abuse or neglect. So we have linked here that there's an online form and an email form as well as phone. There's different ways that you still can report child abuse or child neglect. And just like on the other slides, there's a detailed plan here for mental health services or mental wellness services that we have that is really inclusive of lots of different things that you all can do. Last but not least, we want to make sure everyone knows that the district support team still has crisis support available for schools. The way that you would set that up is if you believe your school needs that, you'll contact someone on your school's administrative team who will then contact our counselor leader, Michelle Searcy, and if necessary, she'll provide you with the crisis lead, and then we would go from there. So that's about everything that we have as far as as far as personal and social support and development. So if anyone has any questions, we are open to that.
That was awesome. Thank you, high school counseling team. You guys rock. A lot of good info. And again, major kudos to all the huge systems you guys have worked to put in place amongst yourselves and for the students and the staff as well. So big shout out for that. Thank you guys for being with us. I think you've had some team members kind of watching that chat for us. So I think we're covered pretty well there. And we appreciate you being on with us today. And Jasmine, it was great to see you again. This time we're going to turn it over to Miss Lacey Eccles, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about simulations to engage students in science modeling. So Lacey, do you have a presentation that you're going to use with us today?
I do.
All right. Hey, when you fire that up, if you could, we'll go into presenter mode and take a look at the closed captioning option while you're presenting. It'll be at the very bottom.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to turn the captions on, right?
Correct. And then share your screen.
Ooh, is my screen not shared?
No, not this.
Yeah. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Share screen. Share screen. Share. Hello.
Hey there.
All right. How do we look there?
Awesome.
Closed captions should be on.
Perfect.
All right. Are we ready?
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead. Thank you.
All right. So hello, everybody. My name is Lacey Eccles, and I am the K-12 science lead for JCPS. And today we are going to talk about using PhET simulations during NTI to engage our kiddos in scientific modeling. So let's look at our agenda for today. We've got an itty-bitty amount of time, but we're going to jam it with lots of great information. So we're going to talk about what is PhET, kind of how to navigate the website, PhET and our next generation science standards, and then the bottom two are really useful for NTI, which is PhET in Google Classroom, and then PhET and our device compatibility, since we know we have lots of kiddos with lots of different devices, and how we can help navigate that. So, what is PhET? PhET is this fantastic collection of well over 100 simulations that are interactive, that provide our kiddos with this open exploratory environment where they can engage in science content and math content like a scientist. So let's dive in and actually look at that website. So this is the landing page for phet.colorado.edu. And the first place you're going to go is you're going to go right in here with Play with a Sim. Can you see this screen? I feel like...
Yes, I can see that, Lacey. Yeah.
Okay, you can see the PhET simulation screen?
Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to make sure it went through both. All right, so when we're looking at this PhET simulation screen, if you go in the upper right-hand corner to where the little person is, that's where you can create your own free account. Now, you don't have to have an account, but if you do have an account, it's a nice place for you to go so that you can save some of your simulations, so that you can upload lessons that you make. It just gives you a little bit more options. And this is for a teacher to create an account. A student does not have to at all. And so they also highlight some sims, some new sims for the day. So you'll notice they've highlighted some new math sims that they've created, as well as down here some new science sims that they've created recently.
And so if I go here to simulations, these are all of the different ways that you can search the simulations on PhET's website. So you can search by content, you can search by grade level, so elementary, middle, high school, university level. You can search by lots of different ways. We can search by device, which is really cool. So iPad and tablet versus Chromebook. And we're going to come back to this search function in just a minute. But let's look at what the teaching function is. So if we look at tips for using PhET, I'm giving you kind of a very basic overview of how to use PhET, and especially how to use PhET during NTI. But this place has all these different choices of other videos about planning to use PhET, designing PhET activities, facilitating PhET activities. So there's lots of different video options that PhET has to kind of help you dive a little deeper into the process. Also under teaching, you have the ability to browse already made activities. So for example, if I'm a 6th grade teacher right now and I'm doing NTI with my kiddos, I'm likely within the chemistry unit that you started before we started our extended NTI experience. So I might select chemistry. In middle school, now look at all these different languages that your simulations could be in. But we're going to stick with chemistry in middle school. And I'm okay with any type of simulation, maybe a simulation that's a lab or homework or discussion or demo. And I'm going to click Browse. And this is going to take me to all these different activities that have already been made that go along with a simulation. So maybe we are going to build an atom. Look at this. It has build an atom pre-lab, post-lab, lesson plan, student directions, intro and PowerPoint. All of these options that have already been made by teachers. And so you don't have to recreate the wheel with PhET simulations as far as what your students should do with the simulation. There are lots and lots and lots of teacher-created opportunities already on the website that you can adapt yourself to make it best fit your learning environment. And then also, if you've created an activity to go along with that PhET simulation, you can go over here to share your activities and actually upload yours. And yours would be one that we found in the search engine. So let's stick with our chemistry middle school. So if I'm teaching chemistry and I'm a middle school teacher, one of the big pieces in the standards is phase change. So let's look at this states of matter simulation. So for every simulation that you click on, this is kind of the landing page that you get. You'll notice this very familiar button up here, which is Google Classroom. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but it's right there. So if I click on the About button, this tells me what the simulation is about, and it also gives me sample learning goals that I can use in my NTI classroom setting, which I think is really nice. Also, a really important button is this For Teachers button. So if you click on this For Teachers button, you'll notice that there are teacher tips, and there's a PDF right here. It says I'm not signed in, so I wouldn't be able to log into that. Good news is I have a password and an account. So if I click on teacher tips and I click on this PDF overview, this is something that's for you as a teacher, but it's fantastic because this is a walkthrough of exactly how to use the simulation. If you want the phase change screen, if you're on the state screen, if you're on the interaction screen, it also gives us model simplifications. It gives us information about the phase change diagram that's on there and suggestions for use with clickers and suggestions for sample challenge prompts. So this is a fantastic resource that's for you as the teacher. It's not for the students. So this is on every simulation. You will also notice that on this simulation, it also has a video primer. Now this video primer isn't on all of them. They're currently making them for all of them, but it's on quite a few of them. And the video primer is very similar to the teacher tip document, except it is, if you are an auditory and a visual learner and you really want to see somebody walk through step by step kind of how to use the simulation as a teacher, this is the place for you. Now, no, this is for the teacher. You wouldn't want to show your students the video primer because you kind of give away the secret sauce when you show the video primer. You need, one of the major suggestions that FET has as well as I have is students need a chance when they're engaging in a simulation for some open exploration. You need to allow them time to push all the buttons and move all the thingamadoos because they're going to do that anyway. So if you can give them a set amount of time to kind of play with the simulation and discover what it does before you give them some explicit instructions, I think you will find yourself much happier and kids way less distracted. And so then you'll notice under here are all different teacher-created activities that go along with that simulation. Look at all of them. There's a ton of them that go with this simulation. So now let's look at the simulation real quick. So I'm going to download the simulation, and this is an HTML5 simulation. So this is what the landing page looks like when I download the simulation. And there are actually 3 separate simulations within the simulation. There's one that's about the states of matter. There's one about phase changes, and there's one about interactions. And so here's the great thing about these simulations is this one simulation could actually be used in 5th grade, it could be used in 6th grade, and it could be used in high school. So a simulation can span across several grade levels depending on what your focus is. So in 5th grade, our focus might just be for kiddos to understand that that matter is made of particles too small to be seen, right? In middle school, we're really caring about if we start to add heat to the system and what happens to those particles. And in high school, we're still caring about adding heat to the system and what happens, but we're also caring about the interaction between those particles. And so I can add heat to the system and then push pause. And as a student, then I could write about, all right, so as a teacher, I might ask, talk about the inputs into the system and what happened within that system model. And so I can push pause, and here's a fantastic feature that they have that they didn't have a while ago. I can come over here to these 3 little dots, and I can click as a student to take a screenshot. Now think about that from the teacher's perspective. I can ask a kiddo to screenshot what they saw and then be able to describe that model. And now as a teacher, I can know exactly what they're looking at versus a student having to really describe in detail what was actually occurring in the model before they can even describe the why behind that. Now they can screenshot it and then they can describe exactly what they did to the system and exactly what happened because of what they did to the system, which I think is fantastic. Screenshot it, put it in a Google Doc, put it in a slide, write their reflections, write the answers to the questions or whatever questions that you have, and then they can submit that. If I'm looking here, notice we've added some more features, right? We've added pressure. We've also added the ability to add more particles to the system. And we also have added these 2 graphs. If I'm a middle school or an elementary school teacher, I'm probably going to tell my kiddos, minimize those graphs. But if I'm a high school teacher, this is where I can really amp up the rigor to this model because we can be paying attention to the interaction potential, and we can also be paying attention to what happens on our phase change diagram. And so these are kind of essentially the features of a simulation and kind of how to interact with that simulation. So let's go back to our PowerPoint. And our next screen is about FET and NGSS. So we've seen kind of how to maneuver around a FET simulation, but the real question is, all right, Lacey, so I know how to use it. Now, how does it align to our standards? And so Some Kind Soul out in the World Wide Web, if you click on this interactive NGSS, you'll come up with a spreadsheet that has all of the middle school performance expectations and then the FET simulations that would go nicely with those middle school performance expectations. It only exists for middle school, so no Kind Soul did it on the World Wide Web for elementary or high school, but that's right there for those of you. But you could notice just that one simulation that we looked at earlier aligns to 3 different performance expectations, one in elementary, one in middle, and one in high. But what PhET simulations do beautifully is, yes, they align to specific performance expectations, but they really, really are a great opportunity for the science and engineering practices to be in the foreground of instruction. And so when we think about our science and engineering practices, y'all, those are the doing of science, right? Like those are the action pieces in science. And so in NTI, that's a little more difficult to engage in, right? Like when we think about developing and using models, we might be thinking about some of the models, like the sun, earth, moon model that we make with spheres in science class, or looking at cells through a microscope. Well, some of those things become a little tricky in an NTI environment. And so PhET simulations are a great way. So if we think about developing and using a model, I'm going to click on that. And the great thing about science and engineering practices, y'all, is that it goes from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. And so every grade level has some opportunities to engage in this practice. So the first thing we need to make clear to kiddos is that simulations are a type of model. So if we're thinking about the states of matter simulation that we looked at earlier, models are ways for us to represent things that we might not be able to see in everyday life. Can you see the particles in your computer screen? Well, no. So thus we need to use simulations to represent what would happen if we heated or cooled those particles. We definitely don't want kiddos heating and cooling their laptop. And so if we're thinking about developing and using models, like I said earlier, the first thing we want kiddos to know is that how simulations are models. And then we can look at this kind of scaffold of modeling and think about, all right, so if we're in the 5th grade, one of these bullets is about identifying limitations of a model. So that means that our kiddos in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade should be able to look at a model and say, how is that like the real world? But really, how is that not like the real world? So what things in that model does it represent really well? And what things in that model does it not represent really well? And then we might go to middle school and think about evaluating the limitations of the model. So I might be looking at that solids, liquids, and gases and thinking about, all right, so these are the limitations. Now let's evaluate those limitations. So we're amping it up a little bit. And then when we get to high school, now we're looking at the limitations of 2 different models. So you can see that there were 3 models within that one simulation, but there's also several models within just one piece of that, right? I could heat and cool argon, I could heat and cool water, I could heat and cool, so I could use several different substances in that model. And so that's how we can reach modeling in high school. So there are lots of different bullets about modeling, but limitations is one. This one down here, develop and or use models to describe and or predict phenomena. Well, that's exactly what we're doing, right? We're describing the phenomenon of phase change. Develop and or revise a model to show the relationships among variables. So that's in middle school. So if I add heat into the system, if I change that variable, what occurs? What's that cause and effect relationship? And so, or in high school, develop and or use multiple types of models. Develop, revise, and or use a model based on evidence to illustrate or predict the relationships between systems or between components of the system. So if I do this to the system, what happens in this piece of the system? So modeling is a great place where that simulations shine. And honestly, a lot of our practices could shine in that simulations. It's all about what you do with it, right? So I might ask students to construct explanations. I might ask students to ask questions. Another one that really shines is analyzing and interpreting data. And so lots and lots, specifically our chemistry and physics PhET simulations, have kiddos collecting data. There's a great one called Energy Skate Park, where they're collecting data on potential and kinetic energy as a skateboarder kind of goes up and down a track. Even in the one that we looked at today, the phases of matter, there were 2 different graphs at the high school level, right, for us to analyze and interpret the data. And so analyzing and interpreting data is another great place for PhET simulations to kind of shine and for you to really put that in the foreground of your class discourse.
And I think it's really important to make that clear to the kiddos. Today, we are going to use a model, or today we are going to analyze and interpret data, because those science and engineering practices aren't a secret for you. Kiddos need to know when they are engaging in those specific science and engineering practices. So let's talk about PhET and usability. So now that we're in the NTI environment and we're all living in the world of Google Classroom, I bet you're curious about, so does PhET make it easy for me to use that simulation and push it out in Google Classroom? And I could tell you all about it, or we could watch a 30-second video where the developers of PhET do a much better job than I do talking about PhET in the Google Classroom. So, y'all, it's that easy. Like, I don't think they could make it any simpler for how seamless it's integrated into Google Classroom. Push it out, they open it up, and the simulation appears right there on their screen. So now the next question is, all right, well, that's great and all, but is it compatible with their actual device? And so they have another great, really quick video about device compatibility. All right, start at the beginning. So they are working tirelessly to change all of their sims over to HTML5. And I would say that they have quite a bit that have already been moved over to HTML5, but they also have a fantastic help center. And they mentioned on that device compatibility video about apps, they have in the Apple Store a free app for all Apple products. And they also, in the Android, they have under, I guess Androids use, I'm an Android girl, so I think they use Google. But in they also have apps for Android. So if you have students that are using their cell phones as their device, they can download the app and make it that much simpler. So that's really all I have for today, other than to say PhET is free, 100% free, always has been free. So it's not one of these products that's only free during this kind of NTI crisis time. So once you learn how to use it now, you'll be able to use it next year when we're for sure back in school, and for years to come. And so I love the product, and I hope this was useful to you. And if you have any questions, lacey.eccles@jefferson.kyschools. I think we had a question in the chat box about would we be able to put this in our middle school Google Classroom for NTI? And that is yes. As soon as we figure out kind of how to slice and dice the recorded video, we will absolutely do that so that other teachers can watch it. And that's all I got, y'all. So thanks for tuning in.
Awesome. Thanks, Lacey. We had Matt Volka from my team mention that he actually used this tool whenever he was in the classroom as well, loved it. And we had a lot commenting on the fact that they didn't know you helped them bring to light that they can post assignments from this directly to Google Classroom. Looked like so they're really excited about those features. Yeah.
That's so simple and so easy. They really have worked hard to make this as usable as they can for teachers.
Absolutely. Now, some of that last video you were showing us about compatibility was some of the audio was a little bit muffled, at least on my end, and it sounded like you were letting us know that they were transitioning some of their lessons over to a more widely used file type. Is that
Yes.
right?
So they are working diligently to move all of their simulations into HTML5 to make it more compatible with all devices. That's a language in a world that isn't 100%. It's your world, so I don't really understand. But they seem to be wanting to move everything over to HTML5 to make it more device compatible.
Okay, so yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, so basically, if users got in an experience issue with certain modules, just know that they're working to get them all transitioned to where they should be more broadly available across device platform.
Exactly, that's spot on.
Great. Awesome. Well, Lacey, as always, thank you for being with us. So we really enjoyed your presentation and the tips. So the chat was hopping and everybody was excited to hear from you. So
Brad, I'm so thrilled to hear it. All right, have a great one.
You too. We'll see you, Lacey.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, guys. So here in just a few, we're going to turn it over to library resources for student engagement with Miss Jessica, who's on the line with us now. But we're going to take a peek real quick at where we can find this schedule. So again, if you're just joining us, if you were directed to a session and you want to see what's coming up, we've always got lots of goodies in store. So if you go to jcps.me/NTI, it'll take you to this landing page. And there's really a ton of information. I'm sure you've seen this at this point, but if you're curious in particular about the schedule that I'm wanting to discuss with you here, if you go to the Teacher Toolkit up top and take a peek down here at the virtual training schedule, that will open up this document here and we'll show you kind of where we are. I mean, you can look into some coming weeks. There's the week ending April 20th, the week ending April 6th. So we've got a lot in store, and this continues to be fluid and develop. We are currently getting up on the 2:30 time slot for today. And again, that will be the resources for student engagement using the library. And we've got one more beyond that, the choice board for social emotional skills. And then there is an on-demand video available if you'd like to watch that at any point on your own. These will all be chopped up and placed on our YouTube channel at jcps.me/digital learning. And that should take you straight here to our channel. And you should be able to see that we're actually live now. That's what you're watching. And you can head down and see that there are lots of playlists that are out there for you and available on demand. So if you guys want Google support, or if you're an STC and need support in that area, a lot of iPad tips and tricks, things for classified support staff, and just tons and tons of playlists. An entire Adminum playlist available to you, one for Read Write. So we'd love to have you come check out the channel. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel. So that way, whenever we post new videos or go live, you'll get a little notification to let you know. Also, Elaine mentioned always mentions to be careful, to be sure that you're logged in to your Jefferson County account. And that will help you as well whenever you start to get those recommendations. When you log onto your homepage for YouTube, you kind of get some things. And if you're logged in after you've liked this channel and watched a few videos, it'll start to give you some educational content to really feed that. So just wanted to make you aware of all those great features and benefits of subscribing to the channel and keeping an eye on those playlists. So Jessica, are you there and ready to rock?
I am.
All right.
I'm ready to go.
Well, welcome. I will. Do you have will you be using a slide deck today, a presentation with us?
No, I'm just going to be working with the website.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'll turn it over to you then, and you just lead the way. We appreciate you being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Garvin. I am the Digital Services Librarian here in JCPS with Library Media Services. And today I'm going to be sharing with you one of the many resources that can be found in KYVL. We're going to be looking at and discussing Scholastic Go. So I'm going to begin to share my screen with you, and we will go from there. Okay, so the first place that we're going to start is on the JCPS NTI support page, and we'll be going through the NTI student toolkit to get to our KYVL. So we'll click there, and once we are inside the toolkit, we're going to scroll down to additional apps and resources, and then we will click on online resources and databases. And you will see that will take us to the Library Media Services NTI page, the welcome page for students and parents. And over here on the left side of the screen, you've got the School Library Media Center LibGuides. And this Scholastic Go is able to be used in high school, middle school, or elementary school. It's there for all of them, and it has resources for all grade levels. But I'm going to go through an elementary school LibGuide to get to the KYVL today, and I'm going to choose Auburndale. Now, when you get to your school's LibGuide page, you would find the KYVL link either in the students and teachers or the student resources, most likely the student resources. But if you need a password to get to it and you don't already have it, your library media specialist will be more than happy to share that with you. So we are here now, and over here to the right of the screen, we have the KYVL box with the link, and we'll just click on that there. Now, I'm already logged in, I believe, to KYVL, but you would click on Scholastic Go. Once you get there, you're on the KYVL page. And you're going to click on Scholastic Go, and no, I'm not logged in. So here we have to log in, and if your librarian if you don't already have the login information for KYVL, again, your librarian will be more than happy to share that with you. I'm going to go ahead and put this in here so we can get on to Scholastic Go, and I can show you all the great things there are. All right. So once we get to the Scholastic Go landing page, you will see that you have a search box among this beautiful background, which has all these pretty flowers. And if you're more interested in what the image is and you want to know more about it, you can click on this button here that says, "What's that image? What is this image?" And this will have videos, articles, or a website that will give you more information about this image that you're seeing. And you'll see here that it tells us that it's blue bonnets, and they are really pretty. And that's just a fun little tidbit that I wanted to share with you before we got started. But we're going to search today, and I'm going to do a search on civil rights so I can show you all the great tools in here. So you see that when we get to our search results, we look and see that we have articles, images, more information, and websites available. The first thing we see is the images. It tells us that there are 26 results, but we're only seeing 3 thumbnails. So if you want to see more images, you can go over here and click on more images, and you're able to go down through here and look at all of the images that are available on civil rights. And we have 2 pages, and not only does it give you of the picture, but it also gives you a little information about what this picture is about. So I'm going to click on this one here of Dr. King at the Civil Rights March. And when you do that, it opens it up where it's a bigger picture and you can see more of what's going on in this picture, and it also gives you information about what's happening in this picture, what this picture, where it was taken, what it details about it. And this picture was taken of Dr. King when he was in the march in Washington and did his inspiring and memorable I Have a Dream. So I'm going to toggle back now to our results page. And we also, underneath the images, excuse me, we have articles. Now, when you look at this, there are 2,049 results. And that's a lot of articles. But you'll notice down underneath that we have a box here that has 4 different levels, and it also has an all button. And if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see that right now we are looking at all of the resources, and there are 205 pages of articles. So I want to point out to you about these reading levels. This tells you a little bit about them when you look here, but if you click on the link, it'll open up a box that gives you more information about the reading levels, what grade levels they're appropriate for, Lexile ranges, ADHOS ranges, and GRL ranges. So that is very helpful when you're looking through these and looking for the different levels. Now, you can narrow it down, and today, for our demonstration purposes, I'm going to choose level 1. But I want to point out that you can have all of them. You can choose if you want level 2 and level 3, or level 3 and level 4. You can choose more than one at a time. But I'm going to choose level 1. And you'll see that narrows it down to 63 results, which is much more manageable when you're trying to go through these articles. I want to point out over here on the right of the screen, you're going to see that you have some other resources. You have more information that has 74 results. And in this area, you would find things like videos, information that's not included in any of the articles, charts, tables, maps. You're going to find sidebars, which you'll see that quite a few of them are sidebars. And then you can click the more link down here, and you can see what those 74 results are. And you'll see that we have a table, and we have some different things. So I'm just going to click on this timeline of African American history so we can take a look at what some of the resources are here. This has a timeline from 1526 up to 2008, when Barack Obama became president, of significant events throughout African American history. So this would be quite helpful if you were doing a report or a project and you needed a timeline to include in your resources. I'm going to go back now to our results page. And I also want to point out that we have websites over here. We have 87 results. Now, when you look down through here, you'll see the levels of these websites, and that they're not all on level 1. But if you go down through here and you click on more, it will open it up to where you can see a reading level. And so since we're in level 1, you can click there, and it takes it from 87 websites available to 3 results. So there are 3 different websites. And the good thing about these websites on Scholastic Go is that they have been vetted by Scholastic editors. So we know that they're already safe, and they've got good, reliable resources that can be used for the students to look at without any problems of anything that we don't want them to see coming up. Again, I'm going to go back to our results page, and I'm going to go back to where we can take a look at these articles. And I'm going to scroll up here and look at this civil rights movement article so that I can point out some of the things about the articles that you'll find. One of the first things I want to point out is that your search term, civil rights, is highlighted throughout the article. I also want to point out that in every article, if there is in Scholastic Go, it will give you a Lexile level. So you can look to see what the Lexile level is, and also it will tell you the different things about the Lexile. You can also look at a table of contents if you want to click there and open it up. It will tell you different things that are in this article. So if you want to know what this article contains, you can look here. And let's say that you wanted to skip down and look at the March on Washington. So you'll click there, it'll take you down to it. You can read about it. You can either scroll on down and look at the rest of this article, or you can go back up to the top of the page, to the beginning. And when you're finished with the table of contents, all you have to do is just hit the X there, and you're done. One of the things that I love about Scholastic Go is the Cite This article feature, because this helps you with citations. I look at this and I think, how great would it have been to have this when we're all struggling, back in our day, or my day anyway, to get our bibliographies together. And so Scholastic Go does this for you. All you have to do is click on Cite This article, and it'll take you to the end of the article where you have three different styles of citation there. You have the MLA style, you have the Chicago Manual style, and you also have the APA style. So it is just as simple as copying this and pasting it into your bibliography. It is fantastic. I love that. One great tool that is good when you're trying to get your lessons together or create lessons or find articles and resources is this standards alignment tool that Scholastic Go offers. And I'm going to show you a little bit about this. If you click on that, it will take you to curriculum standards and alignments, and you can click here and search Kentucky, and you're going to see a blip on the screen as it searches it. Then you can go over here to the drop down, and you can scroll down and find the Kentucky Academic Standards, and click there. Click your search again, and I've been having issues with this all day, so it didn't do it the right way, but I'm going to do it again, and there it opens it up. So you'll see that you have the standards from reading and writing, math, science, and social studies, and it tells you how updated they are. Because this is a social studies lesson we're doing, I'm going to open this one up. But if you're on here and you're searching and you're trying to find things, it breaks it down into grade levels. So look in grade 4 and look in this government and civics and skills and concepts, and it gets really detailed. And so it's got the different standards here, things that you're looking for, you can open up, and it breaks it down into the nitty gritty. So we're going to explore basic functions of state government. And there it will tell you what level these are on with the Lexile, and it will give you resources that you can use. So I'm going to click on the state government just to open it up. And then you'll see here that, again, you have your Lexile, you have your Cite the article, you have your sidebars, tables, website, all of that there for you to be able to build up your lessons and search and find things. And another great thing that we will find here as we go back to our article is that if you're looking at an article and you decide that I really need to look at this later, I want to share this with my colleagues, or wow, this is really great, and I want to share it with my students, you do have the ability to email, and that's simple. All you have to do is click on it and put the email address in, and I'm just going to email this to myself because I want to look at this later. And it tells you that the citations will automatically be included with the content, which is good. Having the citations is great. You just submit, and it is as simple as that. Your email was sent successfully. So there I'll have it to look at a later time. The next tool I want to show you that Scholastic Go has is the Read Aloud feature. And this feature, you can toggle it on or off as you wish to. But when you turn it on and you click on the beginning of the article, this will read it aloud and highlight it as it's being read.
Civil rights are the foundation of a free society. They include the right to vote and the right to fair and equal treatment under the law.
And when you're finished with that, you can just click that button again and it'll stop it. That's a great tool to have with anyone who needs to have the article read to them. It really is beneficial. So we've looked at a few things in Scholastic Go that they have, but there are some other features that I want to show you that are extras that I really think are beneficial, and I like them. One of the first things that I want to show you with these extra features is I want to point out, since we're all on NTI, we're all living in the Google Classroom world, that it is very easy to share these things into your Google Classroom. All you have to do is click on the link here, and it will take you right into the Google Classroom where you can choose your class and you can choose the action. You can create the assignment, ask the question, make an announcement, and create material. And it's just as simple as that, as far as putting that into your Google Classroom. So that is something else that is easy, and this makes this resource that much better. Now I want to show you the other little tools right quick that are in Scholastic Go. They have dictionaries, which it is always a good idea to have a dictionary around, right? And a dictionaries tool can be used in two different ways. For example, let's say that you did not know what the word society means. You can highlight that word, society, click on dictionary, and it's going to open that up for you from the American Heritage Dictionary of the English language. It's going to tell you, it's going to break it down here for you. There is a pronunciation guide if you need it pronounced. It tells you the part of speech, gives you plural uses, the definition, and then it gives you other definitions of words or phrases that the word society can be used in, so like secret society, great society, honor society, and so forth. And the other way that you can use the dictionary is to simply type your word in. Let's, if you didn't know, for example, what the word struggle meant, you type it in, and if we hit the search button, again, it brings up the pronunciation, the part of speech, different areas, different ways that it's used in grammar, the definition, and other forms of the word. Dictionaries is a handy tool. There's also go-to videos, and these are high quality videos that are around about anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds long, and they're on all kinds of different subjects. And these are on subjects that are widely searched in Scholastic Go, and they're alphabetical. So it starts with 3D printing. You can see we have Abraham Lincoln and Amelia Earhart, and if you scroll down, there are 10 pages of these. They're really great because they just give a quick burst of information for students to use, and you just simply click there and it will play the video. And this one's on the Declaration of Independence. So I'm just going to give you a idea of what this is. I'm just going to click on that quickly and let it play through.
The Declaration of Independence, America's Statement of Liberty, was signed on July 4th, 1776, by members of the Second Continental Congress. It announced the separation of the American colonies from Great Britain and led to the formation of the United States.
And as you see, it was a quick 20, I think it was like 22 seconds long. Just a quick burst video that they can see on all different kinds of subjects that they may be interested in. This one, World News, I really like this because it allows you, it offers you a total of 11,000 different news sources from all over the world. It has from 73 different countries, actually. And you can choose the country by using this drop-down tool. You can scroll down through here and see that there are indeed a lot of countries that you can choose from. Of course, because we are in the United States, it defaults to the United States of America. But if you scroll down through here, you'll see that we have the Associated Press, the Boston Globe, and just all kinds of different news sources that we can look at. And not only that, but over here on the right of the screen, in highlighted in blue, it has major U.S. sources. So you've got NPR, Voice of America, you have the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. So let's just click on the Wall Street Journal, just so I can show you this. And it pops up with today's Wall Street Journal, and you just simply can scroll down and read it, or if you see something that really interests you, you can also look and click there, and it will open it up for you, and you can read that article. It's an essay, and it did not open up. Yes, it did. It took it a minute. About what will Aristotle do in a pandemic. So that is fantastic. You can look at that and enjoy it. And as I mentioned, it has them for around the world. So if you wanted to go and know what was going on in Australia today, you can click that and it'll bring up some of Australia's most popular newspapers and news sources. And we can look at the Sydney Morning Herald for today. And it will open it up indeed, and it works the same way. You can see what's going on over in Australia. The last thing that I want to show you is the Atlas tool, and it has World Atlas, and it has a U.S. map. So we'll take a look first at the World Atlas. And this World Atlas offers different types of maps. It has a geopolitical map, which is what we're looking at. It also has thematic exploration and global distances, and we'll look at those in just a moment. But this geopolitical map shows you the whole map of the world. And then if you scroll on down, you'll see here that, again, it links it right to articles with their level, with their lexile, and it even tells you where they came from. So if we clicked on this, it's going to open it up. This article about the world from the New Book of Knowledge. It, again, has your lexiles, your citations. You have pictures over here. You have sidebars, facts at a glance, and websites that you can click, and it will take you out to those. You can go back, and this map you can also click on. So we'll click on Europe, and when you do that, it gives you a more detailed map of Europe. And you can also go down here, and there are articles. Again, you can look at the different articles that Scholastic has brought up for you to take a look at on the levels. historical maps, the one that comes up is Europe in 400 to 568. But if you go over here to the T, it's interactive, and you can click on your pin that Union present, and it brings up a better view of Europe. And then there are also thematic maps that give you the different crops that are grown throughout Europe and things that they have there, and what area of Europe, what do they grow, where at, what different kinds of things. So you can look also over here, you can click, this is interactive, you can go for the geology, the languages, all kinds of great facts. And then down here again, you've got articles. In the global distances, let's say that you wanted to know what the distance was from Dublin, Ireland to London, England. And you can put that right in there, and that will bring that back right quick, and the distance is 286.4 miles. So it's just got all kinds of really great information there that you can use to find just about anything you want. And the other one I want to show you under the Atlas is the U.S. maps. And it'll bring up a map of the United States and U.S. territory. And you can hover over this, Maps Interactive, and you can click on any state you like. So today, I think I want to go to Colorado. And when you do that, it brings up a beautiful image of Colorado. Over here on the right, you have a map. You've got an image of the Rocky Mountain National Park with, it tells you a little bit more about that. There with a little bit of information. You have the state bird, the state flower, more images, websites. And again, you've got your lexile and your citations, but look at the information you have here. You have an introduction, you have the history, the geography, the economy, the culture, the government, cities, spotlight, and the people. So what a fantastic tool to use if your students are going to do state projects. It has everything you need with a wealth of information. That, as you can see, Scholastic Go is a great resource, fantastic, that can be used kind of as a one-stop shop to find your articles, your videos, websites, images, and more. Thank you so much for having me today. Are there any questions?
That was awesome, Jessica. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What a powerful tool, especially in these times, not to mention all the one-stop shop, but even any exercise we can do right now to put our minds in a different place. So seeing those pictures of Colorado, even briefly, brought joy to me. So thank you.
You're welcome.
It looks like they've had you covered in the chat pretty well. I think that would conclude, but I'm sure they can reach you via email if they have further questions. Is that right, Jessica? Or are you just Jessica.Garvin?
Yes, my email is jessica.garvin@jefferson-school.us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. At this time, we're going to turn it on over to Leah and Kayla for choice boards for social emotional skills. And I'd like to ask you ladies that are joining us now for our final session today, do you guys have a presentation that you'll be using? Looks like Kayla may be pulling something up.
Yes, Kayla is going to share it.
Awesome. Kayla, if you could do me a favor, at the bottom of that presenter mode, if you could tap on that CC button that just popped up there, just click on that for us. And anytime you talk, at least, we'll get a closed captioning of what's being said for our audience that may need that. So thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to you guys. I'm excited to hear what you've got to tell us about today. Go right ahead.
Kayla, are you ready?
self-muted. All right. So we're going to talk about social emotional skills and our choice boards.
And Kayla, it may make you hit that CC button again for us. I'm sorry if we got
Okay.
out.
Sure that's. All right. So we're going to go through Google Sites just real briefly. We had some other mental health practitioners have a few questions on how we created our site. So I'm going to go through that fairly quickly before we start getting into our choice boards for our social emotional skills. So to be able to create a Google site from your drive, you'll go to the 6-dot menu on the left of your screen. This will drop down a box to give you access to Google Sites. When I first tried to find Google Sites, it wasn't on my drop-down menu, but I was able to Google it, download it to my Chromebook, and then it was there from then on. When you create a new site, after you click on that little icon, this is the first web page that you'll see. In the bottom right-hand corner, there's the Google plus sign. You'll want to click that to create a new site. This brings you to the first page that you'll see on your site. Has all of your toolbar there on the right that we will be looking at a little bit closer. To add multiple pages to your site, on that right-hand side of your toolbox, there's a place where you can see pages. You'll simply click on that. You can add a subpage, you can duplicate your home page, and then all of your properties are right there at that screen as well. So once you add a new subpage, you'll want to name it. For our example, we named our second page our choice boards for our fellow mental health practitioners who will be creating these sites. The subpages, you can rename your pages by simply double clicking on them. You can also rearrange second and third and as many subpages that you have after that by just dragging and dropping. And to delete a page, you just hover your mouse, click the 3 dots on the left, and then select delete. It's pretty self-explanatory and super easy to use. So some subpage options that we use that displayed our choice boards. I added myself as a subpage to my school counselor website. So it's a one-stop shop for everything. So our families can find everything they need on that one-stop page there. And Leah made hers a little bit different.
So I will share that I chose to make my own site. I share my time between 2 schools. I'm at Oklahoma Elementary and Fern Creek Elementary. And so it kind of served me, I guess, in a better way to make my own site so that I could share that link with all of those students that are on my caseload at both schools. So I chose to do that. And as you can see on the right where it shows all the different pages, the home screen, and then all of my pages there are linked, kind of like links on a web page or on a website. I kind of see those as links, and so all of those pages that I created, you can see right there on the right underneath the home screen. So I chose to add those links or subpages to share my contact information, my choice boards, something I created called Storytime with Mrs. Lufsher, resource pages, and virtual vacation. So you can see those right there on the right of the screen.
So when you add your resources, for example, we added coping skills or other social emotional learning items to our web page, you go back to that right-hand corner toolbar, that insert option there. This is the first kind of screen you'll see. I selected that first layout. I really enjoy how Google Sites gives you preset layouts. I am not a web designer by any means. So it's super easy to have preset layouts that you can just choose from and customize your page from there. When you add files, it was easier to do it from our drive. You can also upload YouTube videos, images, calendars, a map. You simply select that Google plus sign there, and that'll bring you this drop-down menu that you see on the right. So when you select the file from your drive, then you want to click Insert, and then your file will appear in the box. But you don't want to forget to make this viewable, which is one of the huge things that a lot of mental health practitioners creating their first site, including myself and Leah, kind of struggled with, because we forgot to make it viewable so our families and our parents and our teachers and staff and everyone can have access to it, whether they have a JCPS email or not. So this is simply how you make those files viewable by other people to make them public. You just click on that yellow share button, and then it'll bring you a pop-up menu with a drop down, and you can select how you want to share with other people from there. If you want to make it viewable to everyone, there is that option as well. Make sure you put can view instead of edit so that your document is protected.
I'll jump in here and just add that when I was creating my site in the beginning, I didn't do this, and so I was kind of learning by trial and error. And so one thing that I learned that was really important is that each resource that I uploaded from Drive, I needed to make each file, whether it was a document or a slide, I had to make each resource viewable and share it so that anyone with the link can view it, rather than just making my site viewable so that anyone with the link can have it. I did that in the beginning, and it still ran into problems. And so I learned that I had to make each file, or like a document or a slide, viewable so that anyone with the link can see it. So I wanted to just make sure to clarify, because I learned that the hard way. Next up on the next slide, it shows this shows how you can preview your site. And so all you have to do is click on the preview button at the top of your screen. The arrow there shows where you can preview it. And this allows you to see what your site will look like once it's published. And so it's kind of nice to be able to leave the space that you've been editing, because you see it in that editing space rather than the way that your public will see it. So it's kind of nice to be able to preview it before you publish it, and to see what it's going to look like on the other side whenever those that, your caseload students or your parents are looking at it. So that's a nice feature that allows you to see that before you publish it.
When you're ready to publish your site, there's a beautiful big blue button that says publish. You can't miss it on that right-hand side. You can name your site, you give it a web address. I think Leah and I both just made our web address the title of our page, which makes it pretty easy for everyone to find. And then you'll want to click who can see your site. So if it's anybody at JCPS schools, if it's public, however you want to make your site, you'll click on that manage button there and make those adjustments. So when you're ready to view your site after you've published, the drop down bar on that right side of that publish button, you simply click view publish site, and it'll bring up a new tab that shows exactly what your site is going to look like for the public when they click on your site. The best feature I think about Google Sites is you can edit it anytime. When you're editing your site, it doesn't take your site down, so there will be no confusion about your site missing or it's not there. Whenever you're ready to finish your edits, you'll want to publish again. And once you publish, then all of those changes you made will come into effect. But you can change it anytime while the site is still active. So this is how we added our choice boards for those social emotional skills. I put my choice board on my Google site in one of the layouts, the preset layouts I just added from my Google Drive, and Leah did something a little bit different for hers.
I chose to make my choice boards its own subpage, and so they're kind of like what I stated earlier. They're kind of like links at the top of my site. So I decided to separate mine into pre-K through second grade choice boards, and then third through fifth grade choice boards. So that way, there's some ease whenever, they can just look straight across the top and be able to locate those choice boards pretty easily.
So we're going to spend a little time and talk about our social and emotional learning choice boards that we've created for our students and families. Social emotional learning is really just the process in which children kind of take the knowledge and the attitude and the skills that they have to understand and manage their emotions. They use them to achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy to others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and really make those responsible decisions. So all of these things build on those social and emotional skills. Here's my example of kindergarten to second grade. In my school at Big Elementary, we have kindergarten through 5th grade. So I chose to break mine up into 2 different choice boards. I added a move your body element, which isn't typically found in your social emotional preset kind of skills. However, brain breaks are very big at my school. Go Noodle videos are a student favorite. I personally believe that moving your body can give you so much benefit to your mental health and those social emotional needs. Getting those endorphins going through your body is highly important. Plus, when we're at home, sitting on the couch, sitting at the kitchen table, doing our works for long periods of time, it's really important to remind ourselves to get up and kind of move. So I've added some of those in there for my students. I've also found some lessons on social emotional learning by the Angry Birds and Storybots, which I found kind of a dual purpose. It really is teaching the kids what social emotional learning is, about emotions, how we handle them. Also able to give the parents something for the children to do that they don't have to walk them through or be side by side. They can watch it and it's education.
This is one of my pre-K to 2nd grade choice boards that I linked to my site. And this is actually one that came from the ECE department that I just chose to make a copy for my Google Drive and then added it to my site. So as you can see, there are hyperlinks that are already included in the choice board for students to be able to click on and go straight to whether it's a YouTube video or whether it's a file that they can use. The ECE department did a really great job creating these, and so I decided to use the ones that they offered for my site.
So here's my example of my 3rd to 5th grade choice boards. Again, I have coping strategies, that emotional regulation, and social skills, which you typically find under social and emotional learning. And I've also added that move your body element, again, because I find that it's very helpful for students and even myself to get up and move once in a while. I've added some Go Noodles and some things that are more age appropriate for 3rd through 5th graders, which is kind of a challenging task for a lot of parents and even students themselves, trying to find something that they can learn with that's not geared towards that kindergarten through 2nd grade. So these here are very much age appropriate for what they're learning and dealing with when it comes to peers and their own emotions. And it's a great way to have parents have educational resources that are given by a professional, and so that students are less likely to just be searching the internet and finding their own information.
The choice boards that I chose for for pre-K through 2nd and also 3rd through 5th on my site, some of them also came from the mental health share drive that we have through our mental health practitioners, and so I used those that I was able to make a copy from our share drive in that way. And so these are very similar to the ones that I shared about earlier from the ECE department. They have coping strategies available, emotional regulation. There are some activities for self-monitoring or self-regulation, and then also some ideas for social skills. So I think the next slide tells a little bit about hyperlinks, if I'm correct. Yes. Okay. Kayla, I'll let you explain about hyperlinks.
So on our choice boards, we have those nice highlighted links that you can click on and they go straight to the link or the video or the document itself. And instead of having a lot of different addresses that have a lot of different characters that just are really overwhelming to look at, we've kind of showed a way to make that really simple. This is something I had to learn when I was doing my site, so I thought it would be very beneficial for others to know if they don't know already. So there's two different ways you can do it. You can either click that little link button at the top and then type in your text and paste your link, or you can type your text, highlight it, and then click the button. Both ways will get you that nice blue highlighted name of your document or your video that makes it really nice and clean and not so overwhelming for families and students and staff. So here's some different alternatives that we have for our choice boards and some site reinforcements just for those social emotional learning skills that kind of pair with our choice boards. A lot of our students are already getting choice boards and that might be daunting for them. So this is just another idea to reinforce that and give them something else to work with.
Okay, so I decided to record myself reading some books that could be encouraging during this uncertain time of NTI. And so I learned about a book called The Invisible String, and I reached out to the author, Patrice Karst, and asked her if she would mind if I read it and recorded it on YouTube to use with my students that I work with. And she was very lovely to work with. She was absolutely on board and loved that we were utilizing it in this way. And so she gave me permission to do that. So I recorded the book in my home and then uploaded it to YouTube. And then it kind of gave me the idea I would just create another subpage on my site called Storytime with Mrs. Lucier. And I decided to then upload those YouTube videos to that subpage or to that link. And so I ended up finding out about another book of hers called The Smile That Went Around the World. And so I once again went to her and she gave me permission to read The Smile That Went Around the World, and then also her newest book that was just published yesterday called Invisible Web. So I've decided just to read and record one a week so that I can add one each week through NTI, and just to give kind of a personal touch to my site so that students can see me and they can also enjoy a good book and enjoy something kind of that we've done in the past in our sessions. So it shows on the slide there that whenever I linked those YouTube videos to my site, I just clicked embed, and right there where the arrow is pointing, that's where you'll just click that and click and put that link for YouTube, and then click insert, and you got your YouTube video there. So it was fairly easy, and I felt like it was something that would just kind of bring a personal touch to my site. I also found an idea on Pinterest that I thought was awesome, and so I decided to utilize it in my site by creating another subpage called Virtual Vacations. And I thought that it was kind of a way for students to be able to get away if they needed to, because many are cooped up in a house or an apartment, with their whole family, and this might be a way to help them to kind of go off and be able to explore and do some things on their own. And sometimes that cabin fever that we experience can cause stress and anxiety. So I thought this would be just another way for them to be able to get away. And so I found this on Pinterest, and then found out that the person who created this was offering it for free. And so I was able to make a copy of it and add it to my drive. And so by doing that, I was able to add each of those days, each of those slides to my site. So I show in the PowerPoint or in the slideshow, I show an example from Wednesday. You can click on the airplanes and that you can go to an African wildlife camera, live cam, or you can go to a baby panda park. This is an example from Wednesday, but there is a slideshow for each day that takes you to a different place. So just another addition to my site that I thought would be helpful for kids as they maneuver through this uncertain time and need some things to kind of add to what could be the mundaneness of life at home and not being able to leave.
And if you're interested about the other days of the week, Leah has them on her website, and we'll share the website at the end of the presentation. Yeah. So if you're interested in adding some of these or incorporating some of these or even having your children access these, we'll give you our links to our websites. So something that I have been doing, I made these challenge cards for use at the school. However, since we've been on NTI, I haven't been able to do that. But I found a perfect way to kind of transition them from the classroom to an online learning portal so people can use them at home. So basically they function either like a bingo card. They're kind of set up in that way. They have different boxes so you can have your child or student do like the bingo, the 4 corners, the 4 in a row, 5 in a row. I kind of set them up as complete the entire card. So the first week of NTI, I did kindness, which is a social emotional learning area. I also did growth mindset this week. I also have different ones coming up in the later weeks for responsibility and mindfulness, and some other things that are really good for our students to know. So I'm just going to show you one of the examples that I have, and these are accessible through my site as well. But I kind of adapted them for the students at home. So normally in the classroom, this would say, someone in my classroom gave another student a compliment. I just kind of changed it to, I gave someone a compliment. Or someone in my classroom shared an act of kindness that they can do. I changed it here to everyone in my house or someone I know. So it gives students a way to do them with their families at home. There's lots of different elements of learning, doing some auditory learning with books and videos. And then you're kind of doing that social learning about asking other people, asking your parents, asking your teachers for some times that somebody showed kindness to them. So they can really learn on all those levels and grasp what the topic area really is. Like I said, I have other ones for growth mindset. So if you're interested in those, please stop by my website each week and you can find those, or you can reach out to me as well and I can send you them personally. And thanks for having us here today with all of you to explain our social emotional learning and our challenge boards, choice boards, and then our other resources for learning. These two links here are for my website and Leah's website as well.
As we end, if I could just jump in and say, having the site has helped so much as I've had sessions with students, because everything is kind of in a one, like you said at the beginning, a one-stop shop. So it's so easy to share my screen with a student as I'm working with them and then pull up those resources and share them just as if I'm in my office at school. And so this site has been just so nice, and so I guess the right word, I guess, would be it's just been so accessible and helped for accessibility, so that I can share these resources that we have with our students, and it just makes it so easy. So I've loved creating it, and I think I've loved the creativity of it too, because it's kind of allowed me to bring out some of my creativity, and so I've loved creating it, and I've loved being able to share it with my students.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much.
Jennifer's on here with.
Oh, Jennifer, go ahead.
No. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Nope, no questions. Just people saying in the message they love the information and all the good stuff. You did a fantastic job.
Well, thanks for having us, and I hope everybody finds some benefit in those resources that we were able to provide today.
Yep. I think they will.
Absolutely, guys. Well, thank you so much for being with us. Great info. Again, we will link the information to their slide decks is already in the virtual training session for many. Here it is here, if you guys would like to check that out for yourself. And then also in the Digital Learning Channel YouTube page, whenever we get these broken up, we'll have them down there below that also. So again, please be aware that if you want to find out more about the schedule for upcoming sessions, whether that be tomorrow into the coming weeks as we navigate this NTI terrain together as a team, you can hop over to jcps.me/NTI. It'll take you to this landing page, and you can head all the way up to the top there to the Teacher Toolkit. And you'll see a virtual training schedule link right here that will take you back into the spreadsheet that I was showing you a moment ago. And you'll see that we just ended, this is, of course, the Thursday list of sessions. And then they have this all the way down to, let's see if I can get it where we can see the whole screen here. All the way down through the 30-minute time slots that we have lined out for you. So today, 3 ended our last live session, but we do have on-demand sessions available. So there's voiceovers and Google Slides that are available for you right now on demand. In addition to that, if you visit jcps.me/digital learning, it will take you straight to our YouTube channel here. If you haven't done so already, please take a moment to subscribe to that. We have over 3,000 subscribers right now to that. And if you subscribe to that, what happens is you will get notifications when we either go live or if there's new content posted. As long as you're logged in as your JCPS account, whenever you get into YouTube, it will also give you recommendations on educationally focused content as well. It'll start to pepper those into the mix for you, so it's not just cat videos. But please join us back here tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. In between now and then, if you're interested, we have many playlists available to you. This is one specifically on NTI support. These are previous days' sessions that are recorded. We record these every day, and then we break them up into sections for you and post them on the channel for your review if you'd like the power of pause. So please be sure to dig through here. Tons of wonderful resources. The next session tomorrow starts with creating lessons in Smart Learning Suite for English language learners. So that's going to be a really powerful episode. That'll be tomorrow morning, and it will start at 8:30 a.m. So bright and early tomorrow morning. Great set together for you for tomorrow, and they've already got them in through the next couple weeks. Please be on the lookout. Set yourself some calendar reminders so you don't miss a session. We've got more coming up for using Google Meet and video conferencing in the coming weeks, and new content material being added really every day. So thank you for being with us today. We appreciate everybody joining us and being a part of this, a part of the discussion in the chat. Please tell your friends, your coworkers, anybody that may be able to either join in with us and contribute, or if you've got questions or if you want support, we're here. Just about all day, we've got the digital innovation team in and out for support. as well as the presenting departments all typically have folks in the chat to assist with their specific content also. So again, we really appreciate you being with us, and we hope you have a restful evening, and we'll catch you in the morning. Have a great day.